Hi, this is Tim of the 1916 Company. Welcome and thanks for logging on. If you love this watch, email us for pricing at tmosso@the1916company.com. That's tmosso@the1916company.com for pricing. Today, I'm sharing one of my favorite watches to present to you from Bethune. This is the DB25 Perpetual Calendar. 44 millimeters in platinum. You can see it has a rich rose-toned salmon dial with factory guilloche, blued hands, spherical moon phase, and of course the perpetual calendar, but we're getting ahead of ourselves. So it's 44 in diameter. It's 12.8 millimeters thick from lug tip to lug tip, 51.5 millimeters with a broad 24 millimeter spacing between the lugs. Take a look at it on my wrist, which is 16 centimeters in circumference. I could absolutely wear this, but I would say if your wrist is any smaller, you're going to want to step over to the 40 millimeter version of this watch. This 44 is big, but it's not thick. You'll note with a sloped bezel and relatively slender profile, it will fit underneath the dress cuff. It's weighty. All in platinum, you can really feel where the money went. If you think that a luxury watch should feel massive, well, this is your timepiece. Of course, the toy-like lightness of titanium and ceramic has its appeal, but this is one for the traditionalists, and that goes for the DB25 case shape and dial designs overall. This is the more traditional point of entry to Bethune. If you're coming from Longo, Holy Trinity, a more conventional independent like Moritz Grossman, Moser, or Journe, this is going to appeal to you more than something like a DB27 or a DB28. This is a more conventional watch outwardly, but when you get to the back, you realize it has all the technology of those more avant-garde Bethune watches. We have a strap of high quality. You can see large, rectangular, symmetrical scale alligator leather, always indicative of a very expensive high-grade cut of the hide. And we have a sheer cut side with lacquering, a monotone stitch, a semi-gloss finish, and then on the bottom you can see small round scale alligator. This cut is used in lieu of calfskin because while it does increase the price of the strap, it also creates a much longer wearing strap to have alligator on both sides, and a longer lasting strap on a watch like this is worth the investment. We have here a matching pin buckle. You can see PT950, satin on the bottom, polish on the top, and in general, Bethune watches have buckles that match the character of the watch. So you could see here a very simple traditional pin buckle and fixed lugs here. We don't have the wild, hinged, and spring-loaded floating lugs of the 27s and the 28s. They still have a sharp break with the case band and a little bit of evacuation to give them a buttress-like grace. We have these little torpedo tips on the end of the lugs, a nod to the original Bethune product, the first watch of 2002, the DB1 chronograph. Most Bethune watches, regardless of style through the years, have featured some version of these little cabochon or ogival torpedo tip lugs. We have a traditionally inspired crown in that it's unbranded. Traditionally, crowns were unbranded, but it has a unique and pleasant combination of knurling and drilling on its profile for easy gripping. It's all polished. You can see there are a couple of character lines and seams that run all the way around the watch to give it some definition. We have pusher adjusters for some of the calendar functions, but we also have a quick set system for the date that also drives the month. So that gives you some convenience in catching up if you fall behind, if the watch stops and you need to advance the calendar. Bethune makes cases, dials, and movements just like many far larger brands, but the vertical integration here is for two reasons. One, to be able to control quality, and of course that shows goodwill to the customer. You know your money is going into the brand, not into buying castles or sports cars for the people who run the brand. The other thing too is that when you're making very small production runs, and Bethune makes fewer than 400 watches per year, suppliers, big suppliers, don't want to hear that you want 3 dials or 4 cases or 12 cases or 10 dials. And so being able to make as many dials or many cases as you need, even in small quantities, is why you want to control the factors of production. Now, they also make their own hands, they make their own balance wheels, they make their own spherical moon phase. A lot of the small parts are also made in-house. The guilloche, the rose lathe work on the center dial is done in-house. You can see this is a 2-part dial, at least 2 pieces. It has a toroidal track that runs around the edge that features dark blue printed railroad track for minutes, and then you can also see these radially arrayed Roman numerals, including a watchmaker's 4. We have the day, the date, the month. There's a little leap year indicator, that's the little blue circle below the moon phase, and you can see that the moon phase is spherical. 2 hemispheres, one in white palladium, one in fire-blued steel, and so it actually rotates just like an actual moon. And you only need to adjust this once every 122 years. The perpetual calendar can deal with the leap years, irregular length months. You don't need to touch it until the year 2100, assuming you keep the watch running. Now, de Bethune also has a distinctive process for fire bluing metal. It's been executed on the steel, but it's also been executed on titanium, which is what this little sky around the moon phase is, and also what the hands are. On the back, everything that's blue is, by the same process, fired titanium. The mass is white gold, and it's a very broad movement, 30 millimeters, so the lever arm for the winding rotor is very long, which makes for a very efficient winder, but also the possibility that in addition to rotational motion, you could wind up with side-to-side torque. So Denis Flageolet, the co-founder and watchmaking lead at de Bethune, created this unique shock protection system, which is patented, and he patented it in 2006. So we have 4 springs, these little leaf springs, to keep the ball bearing from torquing side to side. You have rotation, but not torsion. Now, the other thing, too, is that because the center of the rotor will occasionally contact the spring, to reduce the friction and maintain winding efficiency, each one of these little springs has 3 anti-friction jewels set within. We also have a full balance bridge for better bracing against shock, but a patented 1-2-3 shock protection spring system called triple parachute. It is there to protect the watch against damage, but it also helps to improve chronometry by more rapidly recentering the pivot jewel in its cup after a shock. We have a fired blue titanium balance wheel. This is the 10th balance wheel patented by Denis. He looks to achieve improvements concerning aerodynamic drag, maximizing the total percentage of mass in the rim of the wheel, and also reducing the effects of temperature on timing. So this is the 2016 patent balance that is made in-house. While the hairspring alloy is not made in-house, it is shaped in-house, and the shape is a patented curve that requires the hairspring spiral to be cut. The 2 pieces are then shaped independently and clamped back together, which makes it flat and shock resistant like a flat hairspring, but allows it to breathe concentrically like an overcoil. We've got a 4 Hertz beat rate here, 28,800 vibrations per hour. We've also got a 5-day power reserve in spite of the perpetual calendar. The finishing is designed to be deceptively fine, so you can see it looks like it's a little bit industrial. We have satin finish, we have snelling, we have media blast, but look closely, you'll see all the screw heads are black polished. Look at the edge of the parachute spring, and you can see it's been micro-beveled. We have a media blast texture on all the blued titanium, and we have satination on the wheels as well as the low-lying bridges for the mechanism. All of this 30 meters water resistance, so dress watch water resistance. But in every other regard, this is a pretty tough watch for an horlogerie dress complication. If you love this watch, reach out to Team Mosso at the 1916company.com for purchase and pricing details.